Welcome everyone to this second of our four-part series, our Career Readiness Workshop with the Graduate Student Association. My name is John Jones, the president of the Graduate Student Association for this semester. And again today, we didn't scare them away during last session. Marnie Vinn and Amy Adler, certified resume writers and certified master resume writers. And today's session is covering LinkedIn profiles and how to structure them, how to get yourself appearing in search results and to best formulate all of those and to use LinkedIn profiles. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy and Marnie. Just a couple of housekeeping things before I do that. This session is being recorded. Everyone is on mute, but please use the chat in the bottom section as you have questions throughout the session. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Marnie and Amy.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I just want to start by saying that we really enjoyed last week when we talked about resumes and cover letters. I hope that some of you on the session today were able to attend last week. And what I wanted to do was just start by letting you know that we want this to be as interactive as possible. So not only should you ask questions throughout the seminar or throughout the session, but we'd also like to start by asking you to type into the chat, what did you learn last week that was most helpful for you? Was there some key takeaway that you will remember going forward as you work on your resumes and cover letters? So go ahead and please type that into the chat and let's get the conversation going. And then if you have questions during the rest of the hour, please at any point just jump in and Amy and I will try to navigate and answer those questions for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. If you'll bear with me just a second. And we'll get our presentation started. Okay, so you can see. John, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Amy, I'm going to turn over to you to get us started.
I can't see you anymore, so I don't know quite how to do this. Oh, okay, got it. All right. Well, truly, thanks to John and the team for having us last week again. The same thanks, and for having us again today. We're going to extend our conversation beyond resume writing and start talking about what it means to be a part of the LinkedIn ecosystem. So so go ahead, Marnie. She's driving, so.
Does it work if I do like this?
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
I think you have to hit present or something.
Can you see the slide?
When
I do, I lose everything else. So apologize.
Yeah, that was what I was having trouble with too.
So this is the first screen? We're good?
Yes. First slide. All right. We got this. So some of you might have been on LinkedIn. Some of you might not have been on LinkedIn. But I think it's worthwhile to explain why LinkedIn is so important. At the highest level, it has the biggest number of users for a social platform of this type. And if you're not on it, honestly, you're invisible. 760 million plus users worldwide, and so many of those are going to be in the US, and so many, such a huge proportion get on this platform every single day. So if you're not taking advantage of what might be the world's biggest Rolodex, you might be making a mistake. You might be not taking advantage of the visibility that you rightly deserve, especially because getting on LinkedIn honestly is free. You don't have to have a special account. You can simply sign up and have the same access and visibility that most other people do, and not everybody has paid accounts in that regard. Go ahead, Marnie, thanks.
And I'm wondering, Amy, if people might want to put into the chat, do you have a LinkedIn profile? I'm curious to know how many of the group here today does have one. And if not, hopefully today will spur you on to create your own LinkedIn profile.
So Marty and I were talking earlier about the idea that LinkedIn provides not only visibility, but it also is a pathway to getting new jobs. And according to this particular website called Business of Apps, those with a LinkedIn profile are almost twice as likely to be called back for jobs than those who do not have a LinkedIn profile. So in the true nature of a spoiler alert, know that we're going to be talking today about the criticality of having this presence in this way, according to a format that your audience needs to hear. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, make sure the thing you do first when we're done today is go sign up for one. Go sign up for one. And if you have one, keep on improving it. So many people ask us, I'm sure Marnie, you get this too, can I just copy my resume into my LinkedIn profile? Can I just use the same stuff that I've already worked so hard on and then move it to a new medium? I'm going to say no. The resume that you've crafted is for a specific audience. Your LinkedIn profile could very well be viewed by that 760 million plus audience out there. So the messaging and the medium are very clearly both different for each of those modalities. We think about your resume as speaking to an audience with whom you've already engaged about a particular role. And it's relatively private because in an ideal situation, you're sharing it with one person who might be sharing it with an internal team, but you're not putting out there all your private data for somebody else to see. LinkedIn, on the other hand, is not written in resume speak. It's not in those short, pithy bullets. It's written in a narrative format. And you have to expect that the broader audience, maybe people across the globe, could be finding you and could be seeking you out and offering, let's say, a referendum on what you have put out there for the world to see. Marnie, have you gotten that question as well?
Definitely LinkedIn versus resume. Certainly,
yeah,
definitely the resume is really targeted for looking for that job, or perhaps, using it in a very targeted way for networking. LinkedIn is much more public, right? So I always tell people in the LinkedIn profile, you can really, write in full sentences, tell a little bit about your story, let your personality come through. The resume is going to be more short and sweet. And another thing too is you may include some information on a resume, maybe related to numbers or metrics or something that you really wouldn't want to see included on a more public LinkedIn profile. So there definitely are differences between the two. And Amy, I'm going to jump in with a question somebody posed about, someone saying, I don't really like social networking. Do I really need a LinkedIn profile? Do I have to just do it and get it over with? What would you say to somebody who's sort of not a big fan of social tools like this?
Sure. So it's hard, right? It's hard to put yourself out there. But I think the person who asked this question might have read my mind, because I wanted to say that LinkedIn has two audiences, and building a profile and putting it out there is supposed to appeal to these two diverse audiences. On the one hand, the content that you write, different from your resume, but certainly following that message, is meant to attract the search engine audience, a computer audience, if you will. The words that you use and the way you describe what you do should be about someone who does what you do or the thing that you want to do. So there's an intentionality there that says that you're saying to the world, here's who I am and what I stand for. The flip side is, once the search engine powers that be bring the right user to your profile, there has to be some sort of meaningful text, honestly, a good narrative that says to your audience, I am a human being. And I have a message that if you were looking for me, you found the right person. And this is how you know you found the right person. So whether you are a fan of social media or not, and this is obviously nothing to do with all the other types of social media out there, but even if you're not a fan of social media, but you are interested in making those kinds of meaningful conversations happen first at the search engine level, and then at the profile engagement level, and then theoretically at the conversational telephone Zoom level, it's almost a mistake not to even put something out there that your audience can grab onto or bite into, because they should find someone like you if they're looking for someone like you. And we'll talk a lot about that as we go through this. But I think I should be very, very clear that as hard as it is for people who don't like social media, it's critical to have this kind of presence if you are going to that level of looking for work, because people will be trying to find someone like you.
All right, so I'm going to move to the next slide, and I'm also going to mention that there's somebody who was asking about scammers on LinkedIn, and do you need to double check if somebody contacts you about a job and it might not be legit? So how do you tell a legit job offer from ones that are scams? I mean, this is just like everywhere else in the world. Yes, there are times where people are reaching out for things that are not legit, and it's just like anything else in the world. Do your homework, do your research. Look up the company. Try to see if you know a second or third connection who might know someone who works there. Anything else, Amy, that you would say about checking legitimacy of offers?
About offers, yeah, I think everybody has to do their homework. If we're talking about legitimacy of profiles, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Oh yeah, well, there are people that create fake profiles as well. So just have caution, and just like everything else that's online these days, just use your best judgment. Before you accept a LinkedIn connection, you might want to check and make sure if that person has like a stock photo, it's not even a real person, see if they have other connections, or, and we're going to talk later about when you reach out to someone and try to create a connection with somebody, that you should add a personal note. I always recommend that, because then you're a real person. You're explaining why you want to reach out to that person. So if somebody reaches out to me and asks to connect and I don't put a note, I don't often, I won't necessarily look twice, because they could be a scammer, but we'll talk more about that later. Let's get into the nitty gritty of what makes a good profile. For those of you, I think several of you said you don't have a profile yet. So let's talk about the different sections in the LinkedIn profile, because this will help you as you, develop your own profile of what's the best practices, what's a good way to do it, versus some of the less exciting and attracting ways. So Amy, talk us through the headlines at the top of the LinkedIn profile.
I will, but before I talk about the headlines and all the other pieces that we're going to talk about, I want to frame this next bit of our conversation around the notion of branding. So the idea that you have a job, or you want to have a job, and you have an education, and you want to finish your education, and you've done things and you know things, those are factual cases about you, factual things about you. How you put that all together as you is your branding. It's what you represent from your mind, from your heart, from your professional goals, from your history. All those things get wrapped up into something that no one else can claim. So all the things we're going to be talking about in the next few slides relate to the notion of offering up to the world your unique self, your unique branding. So let's start with headlines. If you think about the way a profile is structured, sort of from top to bottom, that's how we're moving through it. And the headline might be the most important real estate in the entire profile. It's what shows up in the search engine results within the LinkedIn profile, as well as honestly within Google. I believe it happens there too. So you can know very clearly that your audience is going to see this stuff first. So if you do nothing, if you don't sort of choose your profile, or sorry, your headline in your profile, you will get job name at company name, or something perhaps related to being a student if you have no job listed. But certainly if you have at least one job, you'll get job title and company name. That's true and incredibly boring. It doesn't have anything to do with what you represent or who you are or what your branding is. So let's take that to the next level. This next one, access your dream quickly, that was a real one at some point. And I just remembered it and used it here because I wanted to show that it is certainly unique and it might very well represent the individual who wrote it. But what does that person do? What do they stand for, and what kind of work are they known for, and really what's their story? And honestly, nobody is going to be searching for access your dream quickly. That's not something people typically look for when they're searching on LinkedIn. So maximizing that space means giving as much detail in as short of a space as possible, using keywords that you think your audience is going to look for, but that also represent you authentically. So if you can think about, honestly, an incredibly circular argument, imagine what someone who would be looking for you would be looking for, and then give it to them and test it. So maybe your first iteration isn't getting you quite down the road where you need to be, but you have plenty of opportunity to make those tweaks. But if you start from the notion that somebody's going to be looking for you because you do something specific and they need that specific thing, and you've done the research, of course, you've already written your resume, so you know who your target audience is, use that type of language in this most valuable real estate in your headline, and your audience will certainly understand who you are and what you represent, what your brand is.
So it's kind of like on a resume, right? The heading on a resume gives your resume a target, just like the heading on a LinkedIn. Also, it's your brand. It uses the keywords that are going to be searched. So, this example of senior account manager also includes, a little bit more specifics, right? Automotive marketing. So there's some industry information there, as well as more details like Google Analytics, IQ, and digital marketing. So those keywords are really important. All right, should we go to the next one here?
Yeah, so this is an amplification of the message, really. LinkedIn is not like your resume, once again, in that it gives you fields to fill in, like your headline and like the sections that we're about to describe, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. And if you treat it like a resume in that formulaic way, you're competing on everyone else's playing field. So if you do it your way, and if you treat LinkedIn as a very flexible tool that you can implement in a way that makes sense to you, you are far exceeding the sort of the foundational approach that most people take to their LinkedIn profiles. And we'll explain this as we go through the various sections. So if we start just right now thinking about that first section, that's not really a job section. They used to call it the summary, and now they call it the about section. It's literally something about you. It's a narrative or a set of statements about who you are. You should speak in the first person. You're talking to somebody, so it becomes I am a, which is completely different from your resume, or I do, or I think, or I believe, or I am good at the following stuff. And it offers up much more than the things that I think an average approach to this, or perhaps a subpar approach to this might be, which is, I have a job and this is what the job is, and this is what my company does, and everything else there is to know about the world that you live in except what you do in it. So be very thoughtful about how you uncover or peel back all the different layers of the things that you do, because nobody else does it the way you do it. Nobody else has to offer the things that you have to offer.
So I'll just say also, a lot of times people will look at other people's profiles to try to get ideas. And so I just want to sort of tag team on what Amy is saying is certainly you can get some good inspiration from others, but don't feel like you need to just copy somebody else's LinkedIn and try to make it yours. So you really, again, go back to that brand, what makes you unique, and really use that, try to capture that on the LinkedIn. Juliana was asking about, can she put what she wants to do in the headline as opposed to not just the job she has? So that's a little bit tricky because it depends on how many steps removed is what you want from where you are. You don't want to claim to be an expert in, something that you're really more of an entry level in. So Amy, I don't know, is there a way to say like aspiring, job position, something like that?
Sure, I think you can do that. It depends on the level to which you want to be visible about the fact that you're looking for a job. And perhaps if somebody is a full-time student and they have nothing to lose by explaining they are fully out there looking for something new, that might be a way to approach it. Another way to think about it is to think about the skills that the future role requires that also address the things you know how to do. So many people are doing the kinds of things they want to do without the formal title yet. So focusing where you want to focus and shifting the balance to what you want to be doing. So one thing I didn't say that I should say about the headline, which I don't think applies necessarily to the rest of the document, is you don't have to use full sentences. You can use keywords and you can use partial sentences and phrases and whatever works to get the right message in there. You could even do something pithy and clever if you want, if you're sure that somebody will be searching for someone like you or the rest of your profile will support that search engine strategy. But there's no formula for headline writing. So you can absolutely take the best of what you want to be doing moving forward and use that there.
And you can move things around, right? That's what you're saying on the slide here, or that's what we're saying, is that you can drag and move, the sections around. So for you guys who are students, you might want to drag the education up closer to the top, as opposed to, starting with work experience, because you're getting your degrees, your master's degrees or PhDs, and that's what you want to focus on. So say you're in school for occupational therapy and that's the position that you want to get when you finish, then I would say that, you could use the keyword of occupational therapy, not claiming to have that job, but more that that's kind of the industry or the field that you want to go in.
And one way to shift the balance, again, is to use your education as a job. Just because it says job experience doesn't mean it has to be an actual job, or it can be a volunteer role, or it can be a project you're working on, apart from the project section, which also exists, but they don't have to be literal jobs. This is where you get to do it your way, and you get to be an individual in a sea of people who are all trying to be the same. You can make it be, you can format it the way your specific situation requires. And you can, you can add profile sections that make sense and leave out the ones that don't make sense, and then massage the ones that you've got to fit the message that you want to offer.
So Amy, we have a question about someone who wants more tips and tricks on boosting post views and reactions, gaining endorsements and recommendations, increasing search appearances. So basically using LinkedIn not for employment, but just to have have more visibility online. So I think we will get there and talk more about that, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, so we'll move through, this is just to keep in mind this is Amy's profile, and just keep in mind that there are a lot of sections and you want to make your profile as robust as possible. So, work through this drop down and pick out those sections, complete them, and have as robust of a profile as you can. That'll boost your visibility.
Just one thing on that one. Sorry, I just thought of it. If we could go back to just 1 second. One thing that is listed there, whoops. The yellow kind of covers it, but on the upper right, it says edit your public profile and URL. When you sign up for LinkedIn, you get a URL. For me, it was something like Amy L. Adler and then like 10 letters and numbers. Really meaningless, hard to remember. Edit that URL, put it on everything. Put it in your signature in your email, put it on your resume. Make it user-friendly. It's usually a good idea to use your first name and your last name. If that's altogether too common, do what I do, put a middle initial or reverse them or whatever it is. But know that LinkedIn will offer up something really hard to remember. So you can simplify that. Okay, go ahead.
All right, good. And someone just commented you have a great LinkedIn profile, so well done. Glad to hear.
Thank you. I use mine, just so you know, I'm not trying to promote myself. It has nothing to do with that. I just don't want to offer up anybody else's profile in a public forum. That's the only reason.
So I think we can touch real quickly on photo. I mean, I think most people probably know, that it needs to be professional, but let's just run through what that means.
So fundamentally, having a photo on your profile speaks to one of the questions we had earlier, which is authenticity. Assuming it's not, as you said, Marnie, a stock photo of somebody, for whatever reason, the photo of you adds a high degree of credibility. Even if your profile doesn't have a lot of content, if it has a profile and looks like a regular person, then people are going to believe that this is you. So think about what should go into that. If you can imagine a typical headshot of you in a reasonable professional attire, it can be a full body shot, but most people use a headshot of only you, no cropping, no weird sort of like edges of the photo, that kind of a thing. Once I heard somebody say, does all of this pass the grandma test? Would I want to show this to my grandma? If you think it passes the grandma test, you're doing it right. It doesn't have to be altogether your personality or anything like that. It has to be, am I meeting the right person at the coffee shop? That kind of a thing. And does this person look like they belong in an organization that I'm hiring for? And if you use the same photo across different social media, that personality and that brand will start to be tied to that photo of you. So you can hire somebody. You really don't have to. Phones are pretty good these days. It didn't used to be that way. And if you're really not sure which photo you should use, check out something called photofeeler.com. I personally have never used it. It's putting your photo or a bunch of photos out there and asking sort of in a crowdsourcing way, which one looks the best. So if you have a lot of guts, you can do that.
So it's photofeeler.com?
Yeah.
All right, I'm putting that in the chat.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So I think we kind of covered that, right? Make sure your profile is complete. And I think it even will tell you what % you are complete. So I think that's a good litmus test is once you've filled in as many sections as you can, make sure that you are using language that you would search, right?
Absolutely.
And do you recommend looking at other people who are in the industry to make sure you're using the right language?
So certainly that is a good approach. Don't copy. So I still stand by the notion of branding. Only you do what you do in the way you do it. And even if you think everybody else must do my job the way I do it, because of course I'm doing it great, but wouldn't someone else come in and do the exact same thing? That's not true. You are still the final arbiter of whether you are really, really good at what you are doing, and showcasing that in a way that comes from your heart or comes from your mind will show that you are the only one like you. I would say, so that means there's no right portfolio, or sorry, there's no right profile, but there's some things that you can do to sort of speak to the needs of LinkedIn as a whole. Of course, use that proper language, the stuff that brands you well. On a high level, put more than one job experience in LinkedIn. Apparently LinkedIn really likes that. So even if you've only had one job, think about ways that you can add something else, maybe a volunteer role or your education, or think about ways that you can split up that one job into multiple sections, so that you're appealing to the notion that LinkedIn says this is somebody who has more than one thing going on. It somehow amplifies a person's presence, if you will, to have more than one job, which I understand. If somebody's had one job for 25 years, it's tempting to say, well, I had this job for 25 years and here are the dates. But I imagine within those 25 years, or even breaking out a piece of one of those years or a section of things that you've done, will have a pretty big impact and will also appeal to your audience because you're giving them a window into the kinds of things that make you special.
All right, so let's talk about the building the network. And also I think that I'm hoping this can sort of like to address some of Lauren's questions about boosting post views and gaining endorsements and recommendations. And I really feel like the crux of that is making sure you have a network.
So LinkedIn is all about connections. It's about creating connections online and turning them into offline conversations, and then reversing that so that the people that you know in real life you're also connecting with on LinkedIn, because it has this multiplicative effect. You know somebody and then they know people that you don't know, and now you're second degree connections, and that can be really, really valuable. So insofar as everything we've talked about so far is about you putting out a message to the world, this isn't an echo chamber. This isn't an opportunity just for you to sort of shout from the rooftops, look how great I am. It's a way for you to use that as a way to get inside someone's head and make a meaningful conversation happen that could theoretically lead to a new, if not just a new connection, but maybe a new interview opportunity or an introduction that you might not otherwise have had. Or you could be the conduit to somebody else's new connection. Maybe you know the right person for somebody, but if that visibility question means you have to do more than simply write your profile and hope for the best. You have to get out there and look at what other people are saying, look at the group conversations, the topics in those conversations are about. Post an article you found interesting, write the article yourself using the publisher function. Write something as a status update, or share some exciting news from your company, or talk about somebody else's good news. There's lots of ways you can do that. And remember that every time you create these conversations involving other people, that's one more touch point. So if you, the theory is that 7 touch points make a connection. So continue to capitalize on the things you've already done, so that people that you've just casually met, either online or offline, are now part of your tribe, and they're people that you can call on if you have questions, if you need something. The notion of endorsements and recommendations become very interesting here. So endorsements, I don't know if you've all seen these, but endorsements are kind of like clicking like on someone's skills. So one of the sections we didn't talk about is the skills section. You can add 50 skills, 50 things you're good at. And then people can kind of weigh in. This person is good at it. They can't say you're not good at it, but they can click on it to say that they think you know what you're doing. That doesn't have as much meaning as the recommendations do. Recommendations are huge. I don't know about you, Marnie, but I thrive on the whole notion of recommendations.
It's just like a letter of recommendation that you might get, when you're applying to grad school, right? You ask someone to write a letter of recommendation for you, but this gets actually posted on your profile. And these are people who are, saying a good thing about however they worked with you, however they know you. So yeah, I would definitely reiterate how important it is to get letters, recommendations, and also give.
Absolutely both. The neat thing about recommendations, Marnie, that I really love is that, let's say I write you a recommendation. It's not published yet. So I'm writing, I think Marnie's a phenomenal resume writer. I think she's dedicated to her craft and she did this great work for me. And I want the world to know that. And I'm putting it out there with my name because that's how recommendations go. So I write that, she gets notification that happened. And then she gets to decide only whether she can publish it or reject it. She doesn't get to edit it, which is phenomenal because it means recommendations have such credibility, and that social proof can say as much as you can say about yourself in some ways, because it's somebody coming out for no other reason than they want the world to know what a good experience they had with you, to say that you've been this kind of person to them. And then for you to do the same is a reciprocity thing. It doesn't have the same level. I think you should think about doing it, first of all, whether you're asked or unasked. If somebody's done a good job for you, you should offer up a recommendation or accept one, of course. But don't think of it as a transaction. If you're asking your employees for a recommendation, that's not going to have the same credibility as your boss unsolicited writing you a recommendation.
But there are ways, Amy, right? You can, if you talk to somebody and say, I usually recommend kind of a more personal ask, would you write a recommendation for me? And if they say yes, there is a way within LinkedIn that you could send them this automatic form so that they can easily click and they don't have to go searching for it. And then, like Amy said, it will come back to you and you can decide if you want to publish it or not. So it's a really nice process. Should we go on to the next slide where we turn these contacts into connections?
Yes, and I think that will answer one of the very latest questions that has just come up.
Yes, if someone asks you to write a letter of rec in real life, then I would say, I have done that before. Why I've said you've already taken the time to write the letter of recommendation. So would you just take a couple extra, minutes more and type part of it or, all of it into this LinkedIn recommendation? So I would say that would be good. And then the other question about when you get an invitation from someone, whether to accept it. Do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So I bear with me. This slide and then one of the next ones just coming up. So we're talking about what it means to connect with people. LinkedIn from the horse's mouth says they want everybody to have at least 50 connections, because that's a critical mass of the sort of your inner circle, and then the value of it as it expands outward. So let's say Marnie has connections and she and I are connected, and I have connections that are not her connections at the start, but now my first degree connections are her second degree connections, and it expands outward to the third degree level. So you can imagine that after you have a couple hundred of these, that your third degree circle is going to be somewhere in the millions, which means you are now part of somebody's tribe. You're part of, well, several million people's tribe. And that adds credibility when they're looking for somebody like you. Today I was looking for somebody and I couldn't find them, so we must not somehow be connected, which is pretty wild, right? In this day and age, you imagine that with somebody with a couple thousand connections and someone else with a couple thousand connections ought to be somehow related, but it didn't happen, and I couldn't find their profile, and that was very frustrating, because you can imagine that just like that, somebody might be looking for you or someone like you, and you should be findable. So aim to start connecting with anyone you can. Start with your cousin, start with us, right, Marnie? Wouldn't you invite everybody here to connect with us too? Not
Absolutely.
because just because we're your presenters and we want to know you, but because we have large circles, and that can help you. That can add to your third degree connection circle in ways that you probably wouldn't have access, at least at this stage, otherwise. And that also means, so this is the questioner's I think point, is what happens when people start connecting with you. There are good ways to figure out whether a profile has legitimacy. A photo is one, we talked about that. Sometimes it's really obvious when a profile is fake because they have unusual language construction, or they reference a school that doesn't exist, or the profile seems pretty empty. Feel free to jettison those. Feel free to jettison all the ones you don't want to connect with. But if you're feeling a little bit open, take a risk. See what people want. You can always close the connection if it doesn't work for you. Marnie, if you move, let's go to the next one, because then I want to talk about what it means to be a lion on this next slide.
Yeah, and I want to just mention too that sometimes if someone reaches out to connect with me, before I accept, I might just send them a little note and just say, oh, how did you find me? Or, can I help you in some way? Just try to feel a little bit, if they're legit. And so it's worth taking the time. I also want to caution, I know a story of, someone connected with someone, and then that person sort of started mining the other person's contacts, and sort of, contacted them in inappropriate, for just trying to solicit them for like a scammy kind of a job type thing. And it just got really uncomfortable. So I do want to caution that I don't think it's great to just sort of willy-nilly accept everybody. I do think it's good I'm a little bit more on the cautious side. I have accepted plenty of connection requests from people who I didn't know, but I try to vet them a little bit. And if somebody from like Pakistan, or I don't know, somewhere across the globe that I have no connections reaches out to me, I usually just ignore those. Unless they send a note, which we should talk about. I just think that it's, I'm a little more cautious. So for what it's worth.
So, okay. So you and I maybe approach this slightly differently. I think I used to be, when I first joined LinkedIn, however many years ago, like 10 years ago or whatever, I was super cautious. And I literally only connected with people I'd met face to face, which thus limited my circle to about 11 people or whatever that was. And then I started thinking about, what if I open this up a little bit? What happens? And I heard about this kind of connection, if you will, called a lion. And that stands for LinkedIn Open Networker. And a LinkedIn Open Networker has sort of self-designated as the hub, somebody who wants to have 30,000 connections. I really don't know why people do it, but they exist. And if we are slightly mechanistic about our approach, we can connect with one or two lions and have the benefit of opening up our network immediately to this second and third degree circle that's infinitely larger than we could do organically. But it's a good place to start. So bringing one or two lions into your network can be a good thing, but you can be very strategic about how you do it. So if you search for lion, you'll get hundreds probably of results. So narrowing that down to something that can help you might be more useful. So I would recommend thinking about the parameters in your search that bring you closer to your goal. So lion is certainly one of them. Recruiter might be one of them. Maybe your geography, if you're in Grand Rapids and you want to stay there, that might be useful. Your industry might be useful. Maybe the function of finance or accounting or marketing or operations. All those things will start to narrow down the kind of person that turns up in the results while still being the lion, which is a kind of connection that can help you. And if you reach out to them, the sort of the unspoken rule is that they will never say, I don't know this person. So even though you don't know them, in this case, it's kind of okay. In most cases, I would say, put a note, an introduction. Hi, my name is, this is what I do. This is why I'm reaching out. I saw something you posted was really interesting. We went to the same school. I really love sushi as well, or whatever they said. And you had this common ground, but for lions, you don't have to. And it's really fast and it's really easy. And I would say do it 2, maybe 3 times tops over the course of a week or 2. And you'll have inorganically the kind of external network that you need while you continue to build your network in a meaningful way as a human talking to other humans.
So Amy, how do you search for lion? You
So
just in the search bar?
Search, right. So there's a search bar on the top of the web page and on the top of the app. So use the word lion. And I think there's like a restaurant or something called Lion, so you might actually get that as well. So not that, but the results that include Lion or LinkedIn Open Networker. Plus, I would say recruiter, because if you're looking for a job, you might want somebody who was a recruiter and a lion. That might be really useful. And then narrow down the results by the parameters that make sense to you. So if you're a marketing person, you might put marketing. If you are a Michigan person, you might put Michigan. If you are a Michigan person and want to move to New York, you might put New York. But you can play with it, and it's essentially free to tweak it. It's really hard to max out the number of searches that you're allowed. So play with it until you get some responses in your search engine results that make sense. And pick 1 or 2 and just click connect. The worst that could happen is they won't connect with you, but they're lions. So that's what they're there for.
Okay, good. So Rashmi was asking about the headline, which we did talk about. If we have time at the end, I think maybe we can go back and repeat a little bit about that. But I say we'll see about time at the end. I know he joined late. What about the benefits of upgrading to LinkedIn Premium?
That is a phenomenal question. So you don't have to. Your search results and some of the stats and so on that you get might be less vibrant than what you would get if you paid for an upgraded membership. But the benefit to me of LinkedIn is that it's essentially free to join it and you get to control every word. So you don't have to offer up any kind of membership if you don't want to. And I would say if you're new to the platform, try it without. Try it with just what you get for free and see if it works for you. And if there are tools that you like, so say the job seeker tools or the groups that you like, that you wish you had access to, then consider upgrading. Do know, by the way, that recruiters use the recruiter function, and that's very pricey. It's nothing that a regular user would ever need, but it does give them incredible access to profiles. So that's another reason to make your profile all it can be, even within the, I won't even call them limitations, but parameters of the free service.
Okay, so endorsements, just to go back to the endorsements, on the LinkedIn, somebody was asking about this. On the LinkedIn, there are these skills, right? Amy said you can choose up to 50 different skills or keywords that are kind of your areas of expertise or your core competencies. So you will select which ones that apply to you. So like Amy and I might select resume writing and LinkedIn profile development and career services, things like that, presentations. And then, for example, you all could go onto our profiles and click, kind of like clicking like, So you attended this presentation and you say, yes, Amy and Marnie know how to do presentations, so I'm going to click like. So the endorsements are people who know you, who will endorse those keywords and those areas of expertise. So the first step is making sure you have those on your profile. And then what LinkedIn does is, I don't know if anyone has seen this, but it will often, when you're in LinkedIn, it will pop up and say, does Amy know about resume writing? And then I can click yes or no. And so it's sort of this automated thing where LinkedIn like helps you by asking your connections if you are good at A, B, and C. Amy, is that what you've seen as well?
It is. It's exactly it. You've got it.
Yeah. So you don't really necessarily have to go out and make a big effort. Eventually over time, those endorsements you'll get those likes. So someone asked, but you can only see who viewed your profile with premium. Yes. So you can see, sometimes it'll tell you, but only like a few. It won't tell you everybody, right?
Yeah, and if you hide your photo or hide your profile, it's reciprocal. So you can't just go around sneaking up on other people's profiles if you're not putting yours to visible. So know that that's a two-way street. I think you see more with premium, but it doesn't mean that you can't be found or that you can't see some of the details of people who are also looking at your profile.
Amy, do you want to talk about skill badges?
I don't know that I know a lot about skill badges. Is this?
I've seen them also, but I don't know that much about them. I mean, I think it has to do with, again, the credibility. But yeah, I think that would have to look into that and get back to you guys next week. So stay tuned.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we're going to talk in a bit about keeping your profile, not only building it, but then keeping it up to date. So we're telling you, make it a priority if this is something that you want to do. And we're going to give you a tool in a little bit about how to do that. Anything else here that you want to add, Amy?
No, I think you've got it. It's easy to be a passive candidate, to fill out your profile and set and forget, but it's not the only way, and proactivity can help. So think about this. You can create this profile and you don't have to be proactive. No one can force you to do it. And because recruiters have excellent tools beyond what we have as regular users, if they want someone like you, they will find someone like you. It should be you. It doesn't mean, that doesn't absolve you from the sort of the expectations of creating a profile and engaging on the platform in a meaningful way, and not just the day that you set it up. But it's not the only way you're going to be found. And recruiters are really resourceful. And if you have the right content and if you have the right messaging out there, let's make it easy for them. Let's not be a needle in a haystack. Let's be somebody who's standing out in front and saying, hey, this is me. I'm here. I'm the right person. I've got the things that you're looking for. So pick me. I'll be visible in a way to you, the recruiter or the hiring team, or somebody who's looking for you because you're about to go on an interview and they want to learn something about you. I'm ready to be found, and I'm proud of what I've put out there for the world to see.
So Sina clarified about the badges, and now I'm remembering this too, that LinkedIn gives you this test, and then if you pass it, you get a badge. And how useful is that? So I think I'd, again, have to go back and do some research on, how much credibility those have. But I would guess that there is some credibility if you have to take a skills test and assessment and you pass it, that, there's some value there. But it's not quite the same as like a degree or a certification or something.
But if let's say it's about Excel. If you use Excel in your job and you know pivot tables and you are a wizard on the platform, on the tool, thread that into your profile. Use Excel as a keyword. Use pivot tables. Use whatever the phraseology, use VBA, whatever it is that amplifies your story and explains exactly why you're the expert. Don't rely just on the tool or on the badge, the test and the badge to convey the credibility that comes through much more clarity. If you're saying, I did this thing, this big project with Excel, and I used Visual Basic, and I had to incorporate pivot tables, and I came up with this result, and I did this thing, that's a fantastically interesting story that is definitely going to grab your audience, both the search engine audience and the human audience. So here we are at 9 minutes to the hour. Let's wrap this up a little bit and talk about the next plan we have for you. High level, have a profile, make sure it's complete, make sure it's up to date. When you get your new job, make sure you put something in about your new job. Don't let it go. Don't let your connections, your network connections go a little bit cold. Use the tool for everything from finding a job to connecting with people from whom you can learn or who can learn from you. Use it as a tool to research what the market looks like, to learn more about that ecosystem that you want to live in and work in. And overall, don't neglect to be a resource yourself. Know that it's hard to put yourself out there and ask questions. And if somebody comes to you, be the resource, be the friend, be the mentor, be the advisor, get on the phone. You never know what's going to happen. And any conversation that happens face-to-face or on the phone is head and shoulders above what can happen on pixels and colors and dots on a screen. Thoughts before we move to the 30-day challenge?
No, let's do it. I think that this is something that I hope you guys get excited about. Amy and I are excited to leave this takeaway with you. I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I would like to show you guys another screen where the 30-day challenge, so that you can get a sense of what we're talking about here. If I can find it. So Amy, do you want to explain what it is?
So one of the questions we received earlier today, and we rather anticipated, is what can we do in a practical sense to be more visible on this platform? What can we do to build our profiles and to make connections and say meaningful things and be an interesting persona? It's easy to say it, not so easy to do it. So we have put together what we're calling a 30-day challenge with step-by-step, fairly granular, short tasks that you can take on one per day to build your presence and then repeat. So it's not like you do it once and you stop. So here it is coming up.
Yep. So what we're going to do is you will receive this by email, and it's going to encourage you to take one action each day. And we're going to give you what those actions are. We sort of have these highlighted for our use. But here's the chart, right? So it's going to give you examples of what you can do, from basic things like updating your headline, to reviewing your about section and perhaps rewriting it, spending 15 minutes reading other people's posts and liking their comments or endorsing other people, looking for your own contacts to build your connection network. So this 30 days chart here will walk you through what you can do. And I think that, Amy, we even have this whole list here above gives you actually 60 different options. So choose the 30 that work for you, in whether, any of these categories with the yellow headings. And step by step over 30 days, you can improve your profile.
And you'll start to see the engagement increase. You can see how many people are looking at your profile. You can see what kinds of people have recently viewed your profile. And you'll know if your messaging is the kind of messaging that attracts the kind of people that you're looking for. Nothing's written in stone. You can change it up. If you didn't like what you wrote in your headline yesterday and you thought of something better, fix it, do something else. Your profile isn't like your resume in the sense that you can make tweaks all the time. You certainly don't want to confuse your audience who might be coming back more than once, but don't feel like it's set in stone either. And if you think it's not working, take advantage of the fact that it's a computer environment, a technical environment, and make the changes that make sense.
Good. Any other questions? Let's see. When will you receive the recording? So I believe that John will work that out and send it to all of you. Hopefully those of you last week got the session for the resumes, or you will shortly. You will have access to each of the 4 sessions. So, we're halfway through here now. It looks like we've sort of convinced someone to enter into the world of LinkedIn. So that's wonderful. And please, everyone, reach out to us. We're happy to connect with you. I think there were a few more questions more about the about section and the heading. And just to recap real quickly, the heading is a chance to share your brand. So make sure that you put something exciting and compelling in there with the keyword rich. And the about section, again, is a chance to kind of tell your story different than on a resume, where you can share what it is, how you add value. So again, make it compelling and unique to you. Let's see. How useful is it to apply with LinkedIn Resume Easy Apply? Has anybody had experience with that? I'd like to turn it back to the group. Has anybody had experience with applying the Easy Apply on LinkedIn? Amy, have any of your clients used that?
If they have, they haven't mentioned it, in the sense that they will hear from me pretty early on that it's not something I would recommend, honestly. Because, to the original point, a resume is not a LinkedIn profile. And there are things that on your LinkedIn profile that don't apply to a job application. They're not related to a specific type of approach to a specific opportunity. And resumes, of necessity, as you were saying earlier, are going to have the nitty-gritty details, the numbers, the metrics, the sometimes stuff that's not very pretty about what a company does, that it's okay to talk about in private, but you wouldn't want to put out there publicly. So they have different functions. And I think the resume is a much better tool for applying in that way. And we talked a lot last time about what it means to create a resume that has that compelling factor. Ask Marnie if you have more questions about it. But the idea that they do different things, and to fit a round peg in a square hole might not serve you.
Sina mentioned that had to do a lot of modifications. So, give it a try and we'll see. All right, well, we're getting to the top of the hour. We really appreciate you guys being here. And again, reach out to us. We're here for you. And you should be getting the recording and the 30-day challenge in the near future. So have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday.